My name is Claire Hartley. I am 30 years old. On the day I graduated from Ohio State University, my father stood in a rented banquet room surrounded by 60 guests and raised his glass. The toast was not for me. It was for my sister, Diane, who was not even graduating that year. He announced, voice booming, proud, rehearsed, that Diane had just been accepted into a PhD program at Columbia University. Then he turned to me, the graduate, the reason we were all supposed to be there, and smiled the way people smile when they're about to say something they believe is funny. "Claire," he said, "maybe one day you'll find something you're actually good at." 17 people laughed. I counted every single one of them. My mother smiled and nodded, as though he had told a charming joke. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I memorized every face in that room. And I walked out at 8:30 that night without anyone noticing I was gone. They think I disappeared because I was broken. They were wrong. I disappeared because I finally understood the rules of a game that had been rigged against me since childhood. And once you understand that, the only winning move is to stop playing entirely.
Let me start from the beginning, not the graduation, the years that made it inevitable. I was born in 1995 in Columbus, Ohio, 3 years after Diane. We grew up in a suburban neighborhood where worth was measured quietly, by grades, by trophies, by the college decal on your parents' car. Diane's decal would become Columbia's, mine, Ohio State's. But that distinction didn't begin in college. It began when I was 8 years old. I remember the dinner clearly. I had won 3rd place in the school art contest, a drawing of our backyard garden, detailed and careful, something I had worked on for 2 weeks. I brought the blue ribbon to the dining table, barely able to sit still with pride. My father glanced at it for 2 seconds. "That's nice, sweetie," he said. Then he turned to Diane. "Tell your mother about the letter." Diane, who was 11, looked uncomfortable, the way she often did when our parents praised her in front of me, like she knew it wasn't fair but didn't know how to stop it. She had been accepted into the gifted program. My mother gasped. My father stood up and hugged her. "We always knew you were special," he said. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Claire, go set the table." I told him I already had. He didn't hear me. The next morning, I found my drawing in the kitchen trash. Not crumpled, just discarded. The blue ribbon was still pinned to it. I learned something that night. Effort didn't matter if you were the wrong child. The pattern held for the next decade. When Diane won 1st place at the state science fair at 13, the local newspaper ran her photo. My parents flanked her, beaming. That same month, I placed honorable mention at the county fair with a more complex project on water purification. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said they had to work. Later, I heard my mother on the phone with my aunt. "Diane's picture is in the paper. We're so proud." "Oh, Claire, she did something with water. She got a certificate." Diane found me in my room that evening and handed me a Snickers bar, my favorite. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Even at 14, she already knew. When Diane turned 19, my parents bought her a brand new Honda Civic, burgundy red. Neighbors came over. My father gave a speech about responsibility and hard work. 3 months later, I turned 16 and asked about a car. My mother said I could use the old Corolla when it was available. It was a 2004 model with a dented bumper and a rearview mirror held on with duct tape, and it was almost never available. I walked 2.3 miles to my part-time job at the library 3 times a week. I stopped asking for things after that. By 17, Diane was applying to PhD programs,
And my parents were paying for consultants to review her personal statements. I applied to 3 schools on my own. My parents didn't read a single essay. When I told them I'd chosen Ohio State, my mother said, "That's fine, Claire. Very practical. Not everyone is cut out for research like Diane." I smiled and said thank you. I was already, without knowing it, planning my escape. Over 4 years of college, my parents contributed $12,000 toward my tuition. For Diane's undergraduate degree, they'd contributed $55,000. I worked 20 hours a week, took out loans, and graduated with a 3.4 GPA in communications and $82,000 in debt. Diane graduated summa cum laude with 0 debt. By the time I walked across that stage in May 2017, I had learned to be invisible. I just hadn't realized yet that invisibility could be a weapon.
The graduation ceremony was held in the university's massive indoor arena. 12,000 graduates. I scanned the crowd as I crossed the stage and found my parents in row 18. My father was looking at his phone. My mother was digging through her purse. Diane waved from the seat beside them. She was the only one who saw me cross. The reception was at a family-run Italian restaurant on the edge of town. 60 guests. My parents had paid for everything. I thought that meant something. Diane and her boyfriend sat at the head table. I sat at a side table with 2 cousins I had met 3 times in my life. They spent dinner on their phones. At 7:14, my father tapped his glass and the room went quiet. He thanked everyone for coming, praised achievement, and then turned to Diane. He announced her Columbia acceptance in full. The program name, the ranking, the prestige. The room erupted. Then he looked at me. "And Claire graduated today too," he said. "Communications degree." A pause, long enough that I thought he might stop there. He didn't. The line landed exactly the way he intended it to. 17 people laughed. Glasses clinked. My mother smiled. Diane's face went pale. She started to say something. My father had already moved on to a toast about his own career. I left at 8:30. No one noticed. Diane texted me at 9. "I'm so sorry. Call me." I didn't respond. I walked back to my dorm, sat on a bare mattress in a room my roommate had already vacated, and opened my laptop. I created a new email account, jhayescreative@gmail.com. I started researching how to build an anonymous online business, audiobook narration, freelance audio editing, remote work. I opened a spreadsheet and calculated how long my remaining $3,500 could last. 3 months, maybe 4 if I was careful. I didn't cry that night. I calculated, because invisibility wasn't my weakness anymore. It was my strategy. On June 3rd, 2017, I bought a one-way Greyhound ticket to Seattle. $186. 2 suitcases. Everything I owned. My mother texted the day I left. "Where are you staying after the dorm closes?" I typed back, "West Coast." 3 weeks of silence. Then, "Okay, let us know if you need anything." They didn't ask which city. They didn't call. Seattle felt like another planet. No one knew my name. No one compared me to Diane. I found a studio apartment on Capitol Hill through Craigslist. $1,150 a month. A bathroom so narrow I had to stand sideways. A kitchenette with 2 burners. It was mine. I slept on an air mattress for the first week and set up a recording space in the closet. Laptop, USB microphone, soundproofing foam bought on sale. I taught myself audio editing software. I created profiles on freelance platforms and took every job I could find. Audiobook narration, podcast editing, whatever paid. The first month, I made $1,200. By December, I was making $3,500 a month. I didn't have friends. I didn't go out. I worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. My only social life was a library card.
Diane called 23 times between June and December. I answered twice, kept both conversations short. She left a voicemail in October. "Jules, I miss you. Please call me back." I saved the voicemail. I didn't respond. On December 15th, I earned $3,500 in a single month for the first time in my life. I celebrated with a $4 slice of pizza, eaten alone on a bench. I smiled the entire time. I wasn't lonely. I was free. Then, March 8th, 2018, 9:14 at night. My phone rang from an unrecognized Pennsylvania number. I answered. It was my father, voice cracking with desperation. He said Diane was sick. An ovarian tumor. Emergency surgery next week.
The insurance company had denied the claim. They needed $15,000. My stomach dropped. He told me about the scholarship payout I'd received. He said it was life or death. He said she was my sister. He said they would pay me back. His voice shifted when I hesitated, sharp, angry. What kind of person are you? I looked at my bank account. $18,500. Every penny I'd saved. My entire safety net. I said okay. The call lasted 22 minutes. He gave me the bank routing number. The next morning, I wired $15,000. 3 days later, I texted my father to ask how the surgery had gone. The message turned green, delivered as SMS. I called. Voicemail. Called my mother. Voicemail. Called 5 more times over the next 2 days. Then I understood. They had blocked me. Every one of them. They had taken the money and erased me as though I had never existed, as though I was only worth the dollar amount I could provide. I sat on the floor of my apartment and stared at the wall for an hour. Then I opened my laptop, created a folder, and labeled it Insurance. I saved the wire transfer receipt, screenshotted the green messages, saved voicemail greetings before they could disappear. I had a feeling I'd need it.
March 2018 to July 2025. 7 years. Let me compress it, because the details matter less than the arc. I changed my phone number. I moved to a smaller studio to cut costs. I ate ramen 4 nights a week and invested every spare dollar into better equipment and online courses. In 2018, I earned $38,000. In 2019, $61,000. In 2020, as podcasts exploded during the pandemic, $98,000. I incorporated Hayes Audio Network LLC in January 2021, registered in Washington State under the name J.S. Hayes, my initials and my grandmother's maiden name, the only person in my family who had ever been truly kind to me. I hired my first remote employee in March, then a graphic designer, then a project manager. By late 2022, I had 5 employees. Revenue hit $1.1 million that year. I moved to Portland in October 2022. I used an AI-generated voice for client calls, never showed my face on Zoom, never used my real name publicly. J.S. Hayes had a reputation. Claire Hartley had none. That was exactly how I wanted it. 2023 revenue, $1.9 million. 2024 revenue, $2.8 million. 12 full-time employees, 8 contractors, 85,000 paid subscribers, over 300 audiobook titles, 6 original podcast shows. On July 22nd, 2025, my business attorney called me. Cascade Media Group wanted to acquire 65% of Hayes Audio Network for $9.8 million, $6.5 million cash up front, $3.3 million earnout over 2 years, with me retaining 35% equity and staying on as creative director at $185,000 annually. I told her yes. I signed the term sheet 2 days later. Due diligence began immediately. The law firm handling the deal was Kelton and Associates, Seattle. I didn't know it yet, but Diane worked there. On July 25th, I was making coffee when I heard a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a ghost. Diane. Older. Tired. Dark circles. Business casual. A half-empty Starbucks cup going cold. I stood with my hand frozen on the doorknob for 10 seconds. Then I opened the door. She'd come, she said, because our parents had asked her to check on me. They were worried, she said. They'd told her I'd stopped answering their calls years ago. I told her the truth. They had blocked me 3 days after I wired them $15,000. 7 years ago. She genuinely didn't know. I could see it on her face. Not guilt, not deflection. Just the blank, pale look of someone whose reality had just cracked open. "Come in," I said. I showed her everything. The wire transfer receipt, the screenshots of green messages. I played her the voicemail, my father's voice, urgent and rehearsed. "Diane is sick. This is life or death." She listened, without speaking. When it ended, she was very still. Then she told me. In March 2018, she'd been in Harrisburg caring for our grandmother who had fallen. She wasn't sick. There was no surgery. There was no tumor. They had used her name to steal from me. She hadn't known. She left my apartment that night, booked a hotel, and texted me at 9. "I'm requesting my medical records from 2018. I'm sorry, Jules. I'm so sorry." 2 weeks later, she sent me the PDF. Johns Hopkins records, March to May 2018. No surgical procedures, no oncology consultations. 1 routine checkup on March 4th. Normal lab results. Nothing. Then she kept digging. Public records, mortgage filings, mutual family friends. She found the full picture. Our father had a gambling problem. Casinos, sports betting, private poker. They'd refinanced the house 3 times. The property was now worth $280,000 against a $312,000 mortgage. Credit card debt, $28,000. Casino debt estimated at $67,000. He'd been fired from his insurance job in 2022, caught gambling on company time. He now worked part-time at a hardware store at $16 an hour. Total debt, over $95,000. They were drowning, and they had calculated that I was the solution. I texted Diane, "That's not my problem." But I knew it wouldn't end there. Desperate people don't take no for an answer. On September 4th, a senior partner at Kelton & Associates dropped a new case file on Diane's desk. M&A deal. Cascade Media Group acquiring Hayes Audio Network, LLC. "Review the incorporation documents," he said. Diane opened the file. Registered agent address? My apartment. Founder? J.S. Hayes. She Googled it, cross-referenced it with everything she knew about me. Julia Claire S. Hayes. She called me that evening. "You're J.S. Hayes," she said. "You built a $7.5 million company." Long silence. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because," I said slowly, "the last time I trusted our family with money, I lost everything." "You thought I'd tell them." I didn't answer. She was quiet for a long time. 7 years ago, she said finally, maybe. Now, never. On September 10th, our mother began calling and texting Diane obsessively. On September 12th, Sunday morning at 7:45, our parents showed up at Diane's door. She didn't let them in. She told them she'd seen her medical records. She told them there was no surgery. She told them she knew what they'd done. Our father called it borrowing. Our mother called me poisonous. Diane told them to leave. That evening, our mother texted her, "You're choosing her over your own parents. You'll regret this." Diane forwarded it to me. I saved it in the folder. On September 20th, my parents hired a private investigator. He was cheap and sloppy. $850 found on Craigslist. By early October, he had identified J.S. Hayes as Claire Hartley. His email to my father said, "Your daughter operates Hayes Audio Network under an alias. Company valued at $7.5 million plus, pending sale rumored. She has resources. Recommend direct contact." On October 10th, my mother left me a voicemail. Cold, clinical, no tears this time. She said they knew about my company. She said I had been hiding wealth while my father and she suffered. She said I owed them everything. She said that if I didn't help them, everyone, my employees, my clients, my business partners, would find out what kind of selfish, ungrateful daughter I really was. I had 1 week. That same evening, my father sent an email. Subject: family obligation. He requested $80,000 to resolve immediate debts. He cited moral obligation. He cited elder care law. He threatened formal elder neglect complaints with authorities if I didn't comply. I saved both. I forwarded them to Diane. Then I called my attorney.
On October 12th, I met with Rebecca Ward at her Portland office and brought every piece of evidence I had ever saved. The wire transfer receipt from 2018, my father's voicemail, the screenshots of blocked contacts, Diane's medical records, the October voicemail, the October email, the APS threat, the private investigator's report, a timeline I had been maintaining since 2018. Rebecca reviewed everything for 2 hours, then leaned back in her chair. "This is airtight," she said. The voicemail alone constituted extortion under Oregon law. The fake medical emergency was wire fraud. The elder neglect claim would be laughed out of any office. I was 30 years old and had been blocked at their instigation for 7 years. "You have 12 cases," she said. "They have none." I told her I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted them to leave me alone. She said, "Then we make it very clear. Silence or consequences." On November 1st, my parents filed an elder neglect complaint with Lancaster County Adult Protective Services. A caseworker called me, left a message with a case number. I called back the same day, explained the situation, and provided a summary of the evidence. On November 3rd, the case was closed. The caseworker's notes. Complainants appear to be attempting to misuse the APS system for financial leverage. No evidence of neglect. Recommend no further action. She apologized for bothering me. On November 8th, Rebecca mailed and emailed the response. 47 pages. The first 3 pages summarized the 2018 fraud, the fabricated medical emergency, the $15,000 theft. The next 30 pages contained a full timeline, every piece of evidence, Diane's testimony, her medical records, and a legal analysis covering extortion, wire fraud, and the filing of a false APS report. The final 2 pages were the cease and desist. The closing sentence stated that any further contact with me, my family members, my employees, or my business associates would result in the immediate filing of criminal extortion charges and civil claims for damages exceeding $500,000. They had 72 hours. 3 days of silence. Then, on November 11th, my phone rang. My father's name on the screen. The first time in 7 years. I answered. His voice was shaking now. Not the controlled cracking of manipulation, but something genuinely unraveling. He said they just wanted to talk. I told him what he had done in plain language. He had stolen $15,000 in 2018 and blocked me, and then 7 years later had tried to extort $80,000 more. He said we could explain. I said fine. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Starbucks on Main Street, Lancaster. Diane would be there. I would be recording. Take it or leave it. He said okay. November 12th,
2025. I arrived at the coffee shop at 10:10. Diane was already there. Corner table, 2 phones face up, both recording. Our parents walked in at 10:18, 8 minutes late. Intentional. Her mother's eyes were red. Her father's hands were shaking. They sat down. Our mother started with, "Sweetheart, we've been so worried." I cut her off. I placed my phone on the table, recording light visible, and said it once, plainly and without drama. "March 2018, you called me. You said Diane needed emergency surgery. I sent $15,000. 3 days later, you blocked me. Diane never had surgery. You lied. You stole. Last month, you threatened me to extort more money. My attorney has everything." I slid the printed 47-page letter across the table.
My father said it was borrowing. Families borrow from each other. I said he had lied about his daughter dying. That was fraud. Our mother looked up from the pages and said, "You're really going to destroy us? Your own parents?" Diane spoke before I could. She said they had destroyed themselves, that I was simply refusing to clean up their mess. Our father turned to her, voice shifting toward accusation. Diane cut him off. She said she had seen her medical records. She said there was no surgery. She said she was done. My father's voice cracked. "You're really going to destroy your own family over money?" I looked him in the eyes. "You destroyed this family," I said. "In 2017 at my graduation. In 2018 when you stole from me. Last month when you tried to extort me. I didn't do this. You did. I'm just making sure you can't do it to anyone else." I picked up my phone. Diane stood with me. "You have the letter," I said. "Read it. You have 72 hours to confirm you'll never contact me again. If you don't, I file charges Wednesday morning." We walked out. They didn't follow. We drove to the airport in near silence. Finally, Diane said it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. I told her it was for me too. She reached over and squeezed my hand. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't feel alone. On November 13th, at 2:34 in the afternoon, my attorney forwarded me an email from my parents' newly hired attorney in Lancaster. They agreed to cease all contact effective immediately. They withdrew all claims. They would not pursue further action. Rebecca's note at the bottom: "They caved. It's over. Congratulations." I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and cried for the first time in 7 years. Not sad tears, relief. On November 18th, the Cascade Media Group acquisition finalized. $6.5 million cash hit my business account. I stared at the balance for a long time. Then I texted Diane. "It's done. The deal closed." She replied immediately. "How do you feel?" I typed, "Rich and tired. Mostly tired." She replied, "You earned it, Jules. Every cent." That night, I went to dinner alone, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, tipped 50%, and walked home in the Portland rain, smiling the whole way. On November 20th, Diane flew to Portland for the weekend. I handed her an envelope at the coffee shop. Inside, a check for $15,000. "This is the money they stole in your name," I told her. "I'm giving it to you. Not because you need it." Because it should never have been about money. They used your name to hurt me. I'm using your name to end this. She cried. She told me she couldn't take it. I told her it wasn't a gift. It was a closing. She took the check. Then she hugged me. Not the polite, distant hug of our childhood, but a real one. She whispered that she was sorry she hadn't been there sooner. I told her she was here now. That was enough. In the weeks that followed, Diane visited twice more. We walked along the river. We talked about childhood and grief and what comes after. We didn't talk about our parents. We didn't need to. In mid-December, a card arrived in the mail, handwritten in her careful script. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it. I'm proud to be your sister, proud of who you've become. Here's to a new chapter." I hung it on my fridge. It was the first decoration I had put up in my apartment. No card from my parents. No call. No text. Silence. That silence used to scare me. Now it sounds like peace. On the night of December 15th, 2025, I sit in my apartment. City lights outside the window. Portland rain against the glass. I think about what my father said to me 8.5 years ago in a rented banquet room in front of 60 people who laughed. He told me to find something I was good at. It took me 7 years, but I did.
I'm good at building a life without them. I'm good at turning pain into purpose. I'm good at knowing my own worth, even when no one else did. Even when the people who were supposed to teach me otherwise never bothered to try. They wanted me to disappear. I did. Just not the way they expected. I'm 30 years old. I run a company worth millions. I have a sister who finally sees me. I haven't spoken to my parents in 5 weeks, and I don't believe I ever will again. They wanted me to find something I was good at. I found it. I'm good at being free. And that, it turns out, is the best thing I ever built.
Take a moment to comment your city or country. I love connecting with you all. Thank you for listening and supporting, and be sure to subscribe for more stories. More are coming your way soon. Until next time, stay kind to yourself and stay strong.